Now we should talk about taxes and fees. The tax is something the company has to pay. Now, if it doesn't make a profit, a company typically doesn't pay that kind of tax initially until it makes the profit. And sometimes you can save what losses you have made 1 year and deduct that amount from profit you make later years, so it over time becomes in a balance. But for this, if you don't know it by yourself, it's a good idea to use a chartered accountant or someone else to help you, or a software that has this, everything inbuilt, or an online such service. There are different laws in different countries, and there are different types of companies, and a lot of different regulations. And since this is a course for everyone who understands English and want to learn about it, I'm not going to go into details there. But find out, ask people, talk to people, and find out what are the rules exactly, so you know. A good idea is actually to talk to the tax authorities, because they know good. And when you are communicating with tax authorities, let me give you good advice. Send them a letter or an email or something, so you get a written answer. Why? Why should you have a written answer? Believe me, I know from my experience. When you get a letter, you can prove later that this is what you told me. This is the email, save it for future, what I have answered, don't throw it away. Or you have a physical letter, make a digital copy of it and save it in your system also, and or print out what you have got digitally and save it in your file. Because if there are future problems and you have followed their advice and their rules, then you are in a much stronger position than if you would say, but you said so and so, and they say, no, we didn't say it, and how can you prove it? So always try to ask tax authorities many times, because they are the one who will actually decide in the end whether you should pay or not. And if you have their answers, you are more likely to do correctly, and so on. You maybe don't like the answer always, and then of course the chartered accountant and some specialist advisors can help you to see what possibilities are there. And your business plan must be also adapted to tax issues. How you put up your business, what you're doing, also include the tax issues, because if you do it one way, maybe the tax is higher, and you do it a different way, it's lower. For instance, if you are selling a product or you are renting it out, there will be different laws and different effects of it. So these are the things you have to say. So let's say you have agriculture machines. I was talking about such an example before. So if you have agriculture machines, if you sell them, there will be some law. But if you rent them out, there will be different tax laws, paragraphs in the law. Same law maybe, but different paragraphs. So understand that this should be part of what is the best for you, but also what is good for your buyer or the customer. What will make them happy also, so that maybe something your sales argument can be that I am better than the other because this is also a tax advantage for you. Another thing I want to say is try to be ethical in the long term. Some people try to just avoid tax to any cost, and that is sometimes not giving good business in the future. Yes, you should plan and follow the laws, and you should take the advantages which are there. I don't say anything else. But some business people will have problem when suddenly there is a journalist who find out that they are not doing something right. They can be all kinds. Of course, you're using a company who doesn't pay good salary to the workers when you're buying from them, and that can be a scandal. But it can also be a scandal that you did only pay little tax and you had so much turnover. Why didn't I? So try to give something that you can face the public, you can face your buyers, and they should be positive about you. So think of that also when you plan. Plan to use the laws to advantage, but don't misuse them so you get a bad reputation. That's just an idea. So what type of taxes are there? I'll give some example because it can be more than this, of course. First we have this, what we talked about before, VAT, value-added tax. In India it's called GST, the goods and service taxes. And this tax is not something, as we have said before, it is not something that has anything to do with your profit and loss. It has to do with your balance account, it has to do with your cash flow, but it doesn't have to do with anything in profit and loss. You are only, when it comes to this kind of taxes, handling the government's taxation of the end customers, you can say. You import something and you have to pay the import VAT, GST, or you are selling something to someone and you get in some money that you have to give to the government, or you are buying something in your local area and you can deduct that later, so you're paying for it, but the government will pay you back later and so on. So learn about this VAT, GST, how it works in your case, and understand how it is. It needs to be in when you're handling the bookkeeping, and to some extent you need also to have it in the budget, that you will see when do I need to pay the VAT and so on, how much do I pay and so on, and what are the rules, so often do I need to pay it. Some countries, in some cases, once a month you have to pay it, or sometimes maybe it's once a year, it depends on, and something in between. And there are also special rules, like European Union, that if you are, how you declare your VAT and handle is different if you buy from your own country, if you buy from another European Union country, or if you buy from outside European Union, or exporting or sending. So understand this complexity. The second type I want to, there are special taxes. There may be special tax on perfume, on sugar, on chocolate, on all kind of stuff they will have. And when you buy a new car, they offer some special tax on that car also, and so on. And then the taxes on electricity and so on. So maybe you are only paying the electricity, but if you are dealing with electricity more directly, then maybe you have to know about these laws. And so there can be a number of things, but there are special taxes which are, regardless if you are making a profit or loss, you just have to pay it. It's not that you can say that I don't want to pay the tax on the perfume when I'm importing it, but because they don't care if you make a profit or a loss. You have to pay that tax. And the normal tax is what I call the company tax, because in the company tax you take the profit you're making and pay tax on that. And if you don't make profit, normally you don't pay that type of taxes. But there are a lot of rules and regulations, and there can be some other fees and things you have to pay and so on. For instance, in England, I know you don't do only tax returns, you have to do some information to the company office also, and company's house there, and if you don't do it, it can be quite expensive. So there are fees for many things, and you have to understand them. And finally, you have these, when the company pay out, like you have the employment tax, you pay to your municipal or whatever you call it, municipal corporation or locally or whatever it is. Maybe you pay to your region or state or something. Maybe you pay some federal tax or for tax for the whole country, depending on where you are and so on. So that will also be. And then we have the dividend, which is normally taxed differently from what you do when you are employed. And it's normally given out once a year, and from that you pay a fixed percentage, and then that's it. And be careful so you're paying in time, and that you are declaring everything you need to do, and that you have a good bookkeeping that is up to date all the time. Because if you don't do it, you can have so much headache, which is totally unnecessary to have. But it takes time. This is also important. Are you do it yourself, or is it worthwhile to have someone else also to help you with it? Now, if you are starting a big company or a big project, you can have one person employed full-time for it, but or part-time at least. But if you are doing something smaller, then there is only 24 hours in a day, and if you are concentrating, let's say you are looking after people's gardens, and you are doing these things there, and you have to have your own tools when you go to the gardens, and they're little here, you're buying here and there, and you say, oh, I do bookkeeping later, I do that. You can end up in problem. You don't even know what you have spent and so on in there, so because you don't find the receipts and so on and so forth. So I know this is something that many can have a problem with. So find out how you're going to do it, so you get these taxes and fees and bookkeeping in good way.